How about if I just start at the beginning? you could be honest.
Because you know what? They have the sweat equity that went into that memory that they're making with their friends and family. And that's what's important with this. And that's what the I Am Real world's about.
Well, that's a great question. You know, one of the best things about a spring food plot is you get a second chance if it fails.
Chasing Giants with Don Higgins. Brought to you by buyafarm.com, your source for farm, recreational properties, rural homes, and more. By tapping into Don's years of experience, dedication, and commitment, Chasing Giants focuses on the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails. Now, here is Don and co-host Terry Peer.
Well, welcome everyone to Chasing Giants, episode 51. I'm Terry Peer with Don Higgins on Valentine's night. Don, how are you?
I'm good, Terry. I hope you're home with your Valentine.
I am. She just cooked me my third favorite meal on the list of her repertoire. I guess repertoire is the right word, but I got my third favorite meal for Valentine's dinner. I got a good one. And you're eating probably, I'm guessing, a steak and shake burger in a hotel room tonight. I
am in a hotel room in Cambridge, Ohio. I sit by myself in the local Bob Evans, and that had my one meal of the day.
Yep.
So,
did you get the sunshine skillet? That's my favorite at the Bob Evans.
No, I was there in the evening, and I went for the turkey and dressing.
Yeah, try the sunshine skillet next time you're there. You won't be disappointed. So, but we before we kick off tonight, Don and I were talking just before we hit record tonight that we are just completely humbled and truly appreciate the support that everyone's giving us, both from the podcast and from Don's YouTube channel. Guys, it's crazy how this has taken off, and the support, and from the people that listen from a podcast platform, the people that listen on YouTube, and even our Amish friends that are calling in from the bottom of our hearts. It's just fantastic and awesome to have the support that you guys are giving us, right?
It's fantastic, Terry, and I know people are listening because everywhere I go, people ask me about expandable broadheads and love swings. And there's only one way they know about those two things, and that means they're listening. So yep. we really appreciate it.
Well, I got put in traction for my back again this week, and they hooked this harness thing up to the bottom half of you and start pulling, and I just shook my head every time I get in this thing that somebody's going to say something about a love sling with me.
Well, we need to take a picture of that for social media next time you're in that contraption.
Well, we missed an opportunity at the Northeast Ohio show where our seminar corner was, where Don would get up. This place was packed every single night, standing room only with all these. But right outside the seminar area was these hanging seats that, I don't know, I don't think they were made for hunting. I think they were made for like your porch. And there was two hanging out that people could try, and we both said that before we left we were going to have to get a picture in that. But the amount of people that wanted to talk after the seminars were over, we just didn't have time to run back over there and get a picture. But we missed an opportunity there.
Yeah, we did. I'm going to be at the Iowa Deer Classic speaking here in a couple of weeks, so I don't know, maybe on the seminar stage they'll have a big old love swing where I can just swing into the crowd,
There you go. Well, I'm sure no good deed will go unpunished, and somebody will get their feelings hurt, and I mean, it's like last episode or 2 episodes ago, you did a consulting job for a guy who had a real good deal on a truck, and you relayed that information on social media, and then, goodness gracious, everybody wanted to debate you on whether it was a good deal or not. It's just like, guys, I'm relaying something that might be a good opportunity for you. But it's like your buddy Todd Hewing said, no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a fantastic offer. I did that consulting gig for Chris Yates out in was it Northwest Missouri?
Right.
He owns a couple of Chevy dealerships, and man, you can trade a new truck every single year for $5,000. You're always driving a brand new truck.
Yep.
And I don't know. I thought it was a great deal. I plan to do it actually. But even that, like, you get on social media, you would think I was forcing people to do it at gunpoint.
Yeah, exactly. I said a couple weeks ago, if you start a comment out on social media with the two words "you should," when no one asked your opinion on something, then you need to hit delete. And you can ask a question, but good grief, people know a third of the information about it. YouTube should be called "You Should." Nobody knows how to spend your money than some other internet expert out there that thinks you should do it better. I can tell you that. So,
well, I'm going to offer a challenge.
All right.
I know that you're doing something really special, and you're going to talk about it here a little bit because I'm going to make you talk about it.
Oh.
And if anybody can find something negative to say about this, you're just a complete idiot, and you should stick your head in the sand, and you should never come out and expose yourself to the rest of society again. So, with that said, Terry, do you care to share? I mean, we talked about it, so I guess you're okay with sharing.
Yeah.
What you're doing with.
Well, I know people come here to hear more about deer hunting stuff, but I'm excited about this, and I hope that other people will be too. I came down to my office about a week ago, and there's literally this pile of SD cards sitting here, and I just got to thinking, I was like, I got to figure out a better way to keep these things organized, because even the little pouches that you can buy on Amazon, there's not enough slots, and I rotate them, use them for different things. Cell cameras you don't have as big as a card. Anyway, make a long story short, I came up with this little idea that I tested to make this I used a piece of scrap oak that I had in the wood shop and put it on this CNC machine that I have, and just milled slots and put the Chasing Giants logo in the middle. I thought, that'll look cool sitting on my desk. And I bought this machine so that everybody understands our local school system doesn't have a lot of money to support kids with stuff. So one of the reasons I wanted to get with this is so I could do plaques or senior gifts for seniors, and then also help a mutual friend of ours. She's actually the lady that did the Chasing Giants hats, an embroidery machine, to help her, because she has a sign business where she makes these things that hang on people's front doors as decorative pieces. So I wanted to do those two things with the machine and learned how to use it. Never had any intention to sell anything. And matter of fact, I've never sold anything that I've done on it. I've always just donated it or done it for a gift. I did a Chasing Giants one for you. I made some for our friends Jeff Weaver and Frank Archie up at Lone Wolf. And trying to do some stuff. I got one that I'm trying to do for 360 right now. So, just to be nice, just be something to say thank you or encourage people. And one of my very close friends saw this thing. They're like, you got to sell it. You got to sell it. And Don, the last thing I need is another side job. I mean, you know how busy I stay and how you stay. And I'm like, I really don't want to do this. And I think that as I look back on the last week, it's just God saying, you idiot, here's an opportunity. Because what ended up happening was something just said, okay, post this thing and see if anybody wants it. So I posted it, and all of a sudden I start getting these messages. Yeah, I want one. Can you do a custom? Well, that same day, my daughter, who is going to be 20 years old this summer, sent me a message about how the college softball team that she's on is raising money for a family that's from Elizabethtown, Kentucky, named the Wards. They have 3 little daughters, and 2 of them, Tenley and Adley, are battling leukemia at the same time. So this family has 3 little kids. 2 of their little girls have leukemia, and they both had to quit their jobs. They're being treated in downtown Cincinnati, Ohio, at Children's Hospital. They're trying to rent a house there. So the softball team says, okay, we're going to do this little, I don't know, it looked kind of like Super Bowl squares or something, where they wanted to raise some money to help this family. There was one of the players had a connection. So I told my daughter, I said, well, what's your goal? And she said, okay, every player has to raise $115. So I think they wanted to pool all the money together and go like pay for a month's rent or something like that. And I was like, okay. I said, if you get to $200, I'll match your $200. I said, just don't tell anybody that I was going to give her the $200 anyway. I just wanted her to work hard to try to help. So she was getting close to her goal, and so I shared it. Well, guess what? You probably don't even know this, but your son-in-law and your daughter I didn't even know it. Out of the blue, they don't know my daughter, they don't know this family. $200 shows up in the Venmo account from your daughter. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
So I'm like,
no, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, so
both my daughters have hearts of gold.
Right. So my daughter says, "Who is Andrea?" And I'm like, I go in and look. I was like, well, that's Don's daughter. So it was funny. It was like, I told her, I said, if you get more than 200, I'll keep matching you. I said, you do what you can for this family. And then all of a sudden, Andrea, 200 pops in, and then other people that I'm friends with pops in. And I made the silly joke to my daughter and said, well, it's a good thing I finally decided to sell these stupid little plaques, because I'm going to have to write a really big check, to this charity. And I just thought, as soon as it came out of my mouth, I felt so small. And it's like, here I am. I've never wanted to sell this stuff. And I started going back and counting. If I would have charged an average price for the number of these things that I've made, I could have raised over $10,000 in the year and a half that I've had this thing. Just that's how many of these that I've done. So I made a decision right there. I don't know. I wish I was smart enough to put this whole big plan together. I truly believe it was God kind of opening doors. I told my daughter, there's no coincidences, there's no small worlds. It's God opening opportunities that you will never outrun the headlights on. He's always got a bigger plan than you. So in just a few short days, the amount of orders that I took in on these things was really big. And then out of the blue, our friends at Exodus Trail Cameras, and we don't have, actually, I think they signed up to be a dealer. I don't know that they've announced that yet. I hope they don't mind me saying it, but they're actually going to have some real world stuff in their new building. Chad Sylvester texted me and says, would you make some of these with the Exodus logo on it for us to sell? And I'm like, okay, God, here we go again. Keep showing me. Here's a one lump sum order that I can do when I get time. I don't have to do them all at once, but here's immediate income that I could take and pass on to this family to help them. And, as time went on over the last week, just little things like Jake Hoffer said, I want the design to be a little bit different and hold this many SD cards. So I changed the design. When I change the design, when I do the layout on the machine, it has less than 1 inch scrap of the raw material that I buy. The first person that offered to buy one is a financial advisor who said, when this thing gets bigger and you want help setting it up to where people can write it off on their taxes and have tax benefits to get the families more money, I'll help you for free. Annie, her and her husband that you just did the consulting job for, she has a photography and a graphic design business. She's doing the logo for, basically, we don't know if it's going to be a foundation, an organization, but we're actually going to name it after my grandfather. His name was Lester Schickel, and this is going to be called Lester's Feet. And basically, I'm going to continue to keep building these things in the wood shop, but I'm going to charge for them by a donation. And every dollar that comes in on that is going to go to families with sick kids. So I'm excited about it. It's just God keeps opening all these doors that I could have never planned. You know how I am. I like to plan and run businesses, but Don, there's nothing that could have fell into place as easier than what all of this has the last week.
Well, the two big takeaways for me are, I've known your heart for a long time, and this is just a perfect example for the listeners that this is the Terry Peer that I know. He may have a rough outer shell, but I'm telling you, inside there's a heart of gold, and this is a perfect example. And the other takeaway is, if there's any idiot out there on social media that can turn this into something negative, you need to just remove yourself from society. Because, how can you possibly say anything bad about this?
Well, I don't want the focus to be on me. That's why we're naming it after my grandfather. I don't need to be the face of anything with this. But for right now, if our listeners want to go out to Facebook, Mr. Ward, Tenley and Adley's father is, I got stupid, things kind of fall into place. He's a deer hunter, and he's probably listening to the podcast right now, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. You talk about, I contacted him through social media and said, hey, I heard about your story through the Georgetown College softball team. I would like to talk about it on our podcast. Oh, my husband's a deer hunter. Just the way things work out. So for our listeners, we're gonna get Steve Shields to put the link in the YouTube video comments. But for the people listening, if you go out to Facebook, Team Tenley and Team Adley Ward Warriors. So this is the Ward family from Elizabethtown, Kentucky. As of right now, I hope that this thing gets big enough to where I can help other families and other kids that are facing sick, illnesses. But for right now, my goal is to help this family out that's living in downtown Cincinnati, away from their home, trying to take care of these 3 little kids. 2 of them have leukemia. So they have a Facebook page, Team Tenley and Team Adley Ward Warriors. If you want to go out and like that, there is a GoFundMe page link on their Facebook page that you can go. I encourage you just to listen, but here's the thing, Don. Find a way to help, and you'll be blessed more than anybody else. I'm sitting here with this machine that I could get income from, so I'm blessed to have a great corporate job, and I have a lot of toys. What do I need more money? I'm just going to go buy more toys with it. It's time for me to put my money where my mouth is and help this family, and then hopefully at one point help others. So for those of you who have ordered already, very, very appreciative. I got almost over $2,000 of orders in here already, not including the big thing that we're going to do with Exodus selling them on their website. So pretty blessed.
Well, hey, I just about bet you that there's some listeners of Chasing Giants that would love to help this family too. So if you follow me on social media, my Higgins Outdoors Chasing Giants page, I will post a link of how you can help this family. Mm-hmm. I don't need to be in the middle of it. We don't need to be in the middle of it. We'll just put you right there with that GoFundMe page, and you can do your thing. And as a parent myself, I can't imagine having one child with leukemia, let alone 2 at the same time. Let's show
put this in perspective, Don. My son and I backed a 2020 Ford Power Stroke Quad Cab Lariat up to a deer feeder today, and I dumped probably $250 a feed into a feeder to feed deer. Mm-hmm. I'm blessed. I've worked hard for it. I'm blessed, and I know that whether it's financially or just even with your prayers, if you take the opportunity to make a difference in somebody else's life, there's nothing more rewarding that's going to come back for you. I've seen it, and hope that the Ward family, if you're listening, Mr. Ward, we're praying for your family, and we're going to do everything we can to help share this story of your 2 little precious girls. So we'll post more information of that. If you have more questions or you want to buy one of these plaques, just get on either Instagram or Facebook and send me a private message, and we'll share it. So if you guys want to be haters on all of that, don't come saying, don't stick your head up, because it'll probably get punched in the nose by somebody. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that. I know we spent a lot of time, but yeah, I'm really excited about it. We do have one other opportunity that we want to throw out there because we have a bunch of listeners in Canada, and both you and I have been approached with something just nonstop for the last year, and we need some help. So from all of our Canadian friends, we want you to listen up right now, okay?
Yeah, it's actually been going on for more than a year. We just continue to get requests from people in Canada that want to buy real world products. And there's an issue with customs, that getting products across the boundary or the
with the Department of Agriculture, because it's
yeah.
seed. Yep.
So if there's any business in Canada that would like to be a real world distributor, we will give you the entire country. You can set up your own dealer network. You can set your own pricing, however you want to do it. If you want to import real world products into Canada, and this is not for some startup business. This needs to be somebody that knows the ropes and is already.
This isn't somebody who does it out of their garage. This is somebody that can do the importing. But let me tell you, the amount of business up there that has not even been tapped into.
For sure.
So if you're interested, go ahead, Don. I'm sorry.
I was just going to, reiterate that when we find one Canadian distributor, we're not going to look for a second. You're going to get the whole country from east to west. It's all yours. You just run with it. And, we're talking about semi-loads of product coming into your country for you to distribute. So if you're interested, you reach out to us and we'll work with you.
So if you're interested in this, send an email to info@Real World Wildlife Products. Info@Real World Wildlife Products, or send Real World a private message on social media, and we'll get you in touch with the right people to kick off those conversations. Another big news, 2 new videos have hit your YouTube channel, Chasing Giants with Don Higgins. Give us a quick teaser of both of those videos that are out, Don.
Well, the video of the second buck I shot last year is the one I called Joey. It was released it's been 2 weeks now, or 10 days anyway, and we forgot to mention it last week. And then just today, there was another video released on what I consider the 3 most overrated trees for deer habitat. There's also going to be another video released here. The next one to be released is my favorite 3 trees for deer habitat. And I think next week's episode we'll just focus on trees. And I know we've got some tree questions that have been submitted. If you've got tree questions, this would be a good week to get those in. And next week we're going to focus on trees as far as the material we're going to present.
Yeah, because the planning time of that, we got to get on that if we're going to do it. So get your tree questions in, frost seeding questions, and then shed hunting questions are a lot of the content that we've been getting that we hope to cover in the next couple weeks. So as far as mainline news, I haven't talked to you about this, but there's something that I saw this week that's kind of similar between you and something I saw in the mainstream news, which I don't even watch that often. And that was the Trumpster got acquitted of his second impeachment trial. So you guys both have the number 2 next to you. I mean, you shot 2 bucks that scored 400 inches. He just got off his second one, but ironically, there is this big comparison by a podcast listener lately that you had a little bit more in common than that with the Trumpster. I thought it was funny.
Yeah. I had someone tell me here recently that they compared me to Donald Trump. They said lots of people love me and lots of people hate me. There's nobody on the fence. Everybody's on one side or the other. And then Trump was different than all other politicians. And, basically said that I was different than all other hunting celebrities. And I certainly don't consider myself a celebrity in any way, shape, or form. And then they said we both just blatantly and bluntly speak the truth and let the chips fall where they may. And, I never really thought about it, but I guess there is some similarities there.
Yeah, however the chips fall is definitely the story of your life. I think if you wanted to, you would be in a much better, probably personal financial situation than what you are if you would have sold out in this industry a long time ago. But you held to a certain set of values that I've always admired from you. So whether or not I put you in the same category as the Trumpster, I don't know, but. I've heard you say beautiful with your fingers up before. It's pretty spot on. I'll give him that.
Well, there's worse people I could be compared to.
Yeah, I guess. So why don't we move on to, do you have a segment this week for the lessons learned from a research herd?
Yeah, this week it's more of an observation than anything. And, I think most people have probably seen photos of some of these ginormous captive bucks that are used for breeding. But how many of you have really thought of where those genetics came from for those giant antlers? And the truth of the matter is, all those captive deer were basically came from the wild at some point. And just by selectively breeding those wild deer that came into captivity, that's where these big antlers are coming from. In the wild, it's everything's random. There's no planned matings between a specific female and a specific male, unlike what happens in the captive deer industry. And all of those giant bucks, their ancestors are basically wild deer. Just shows the potential that's there. And, on my own farm, I've talked about where when I started managing 30 years ago, the biggest buck on the farm most years was about 150 inches, where today that's up to 170 inches. And I think that 20-inch jump has come over this period of time. It's not from select breeding because I have no really control over that, but I think it's been in some of the management practices that I incorporate on my farm, as far as, letting the better bucks in each age class make it to the next age class, culling out the lower bucks in each age class. And at least that's why I attribute part of that jump in antler score to is the management of those deer. But I didn't think that most listeners had probably ever considered that those giant captive bucks, actually their ancestors are just regular old wild deer.
Right. There's a example that I think you've used it on this podcast before, so I apologize to our every week listeners for repeating it, but I know you make a point of this in your seminars, and it is, if you're setting in, let's say you're in Kentucky or Missouri, high-powered rifle states, you're setting in an elevated blind over a big bean field, and two bucks walk in. Both of them are 3-year-olds. One of them's a 132-inch 8-pointer. One of them's a 155-10, and they're both 3-year-olds. Most people are cracking the hammer on that 155-inch 10-pointer, and that's exactly the opposite of what your kind of plan has been on your property. But you've been able to take kids, sponsors, friends hunting on your property to take out those weaker bucks in each of those age classes. And when you really think about it, it's if we're really wanting those bucks to grow to the next year, to the next year, to the next year, the bucks that you need people to shoot, or you need to shoot if you're going to take one and fill a tag on it, is those bucks that don't meet the standards of other bucks in the age class. Great analogy that you've used, I think, several times that I've heard you talk about it.
Yeah, so, in certain situations, certain properties, we can make a little bit of a difference. Most properties we cannot. I just want to be very clear about that. But, my property is pretty isolated. The deer that are there, there's not a whole lot of deer moving in and out. Although I'm sure there's some, but with the buck herd, by the time they're 3 years old, the 3-year-olds that are there are the 3-year-olds that are there. There's not new ones moving in. And I got some control over that by which ones I shoot and which ones I allow to live to the next age class.
Yeah, I mean, it's every property's different. We make as much good advice as we can on this podcast with the disclaimers. The people that are going in saying, "Oh, well, if you pour this mineral out, you're going to get 20 more inches of antler." We sell mineral, and we're not saying that because it's not true. But there are ways to always improve your habitat and help those deer reach that potential, referencing back even to what Dr. Strickland's episode was. So good facts, but again, thanks for everybody's patience in this episode tonight. Let me talk about this new venture that I'm doing. We'll still stir the pot and say that if you want a deal on a Chevy truck in the Missouri area, call Chris Yates at Victory Chevrolet. I hope that we ruffle a bunch of feathers again from the people that think they understand what's going on. Or I like the people that would call you asking clarification of the deal when Chris is actually commenting on the chain of messages.
Yeah.
That was classic.
Well.
But and then
also,
also go out and check out Don's YouTube channel for the release of the Joey buck, that summary of that video, and then also the tree video. And we'll tease it a little bit. The next video that's coming out is going to be the best trees that kind of have a lot of hype. So I really appreciated this last video. I watched it this morning before church. And I never knew the difference, and it doesn't sound like there is a difference between some of these chestnut trees. So maybe the people that are out looking for chestnut trees this year, that video will save you a little bit of money.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, with that, why don't we go on to the buyafarm.com property of the week.
Buyafarm.com is your source for farm, recreational properties, rural homes, and more. Now, here is Don Higgins with this week's featured property.
Okay, we're going to move to another state for this week's property of the week. We usually talk about Illinois properties, but today we're going to talk about a 60-acre livestock farmstead in northern Ripley County, Missouri. And I picked this farm because I know we have a lot of Amish listeners. And as I looked at this farm, you can go on the buyafarm.com website. There's drone footage of this property. It's got a house and all the outbuildings and several of those outbuildings. But it just reminded me of an Amish homestead. This would be a perfect place for an Amish family. I'm telling you, this is it already looks like an Amish homestead almost. It's on 60 acres. Let's see, I'm reading my notes here. There's a heated shop, there's bars, multiple outbuildings. There's a farrow and nursery building for hogs, chicken buildings. There's 3 ponds for livestock. Large kitchen, 7-bedroom house. I guess that's what made me think of an Amish home. It's a big 2-story home, 7 bedrooms, 3 bath. I'm telling you, you got to see it to appreciate it. And the thing about it is the taxes on this is only $832. And I did a double take when I seen that for this whole farmstead. And the seller is very motivated. I'm not sure what the situation is there, but apparently they're wanting to move, probably retire or something. But it's a great opportunity for somebody. Again, it's in Ripley County, Missouri. And if you're interested in this property, you need to call agent Jamie Keller. And Jamie's phone number is 618-713-7677. And tell her you're interested in the farmstead in Ripley County, Missouri that you heard about on Chasing Giants.
Only $832 in taxes. Illinois would charge that on the hog building.
Yeah. Yeah, if it was falling down.
We got to figure out a way
Don't get me started.
You're the one paying that Illinois property tax, not me. So
The state's a joke.
I try to get you a little fired up. You know, come on. We got to give all those people a little bit more to pick on you about outside of broadheads and tree saddles. So.
Well, you know, Illinois is the state that brought you Obama. And that's all you got to know. That's the politics of Illinois.
That's what Illinois. Obama. That's what Illinois is known for. They brought you Obama.
Well, he may not even be the shadiest one in the state. You know, we send all our governors to jail when they get done serving as governor. They go right to prison. A lot of joke.
Didn't see that one coming tonight, did we?
No, we didn't.
All right. So before we go on to the listener submitted questions, you told me that since Miss Stephanie got you all of the embroidered Chasing Giants hats, as far as you know, you've caught up on all of the orders on those. So if you haven't received your Chasing Giants ball cap yet, you will be getting those very shortly.
Yeah, and also we had ran out of some sizes of T-shirts. We moved a lot of T-shirts, basically since about the 1st of December, and I was out of a couple sizes, but we got those in this week as well, so we should be 100% caught up on orders. If you ordered hat, shirt, books, whatever, they're on the way.
Yeah. So check out Higgins Outdoors if you're interested in books, hats, shirts, anything like that. We don't have a lot of hats left, and some of the books are running really low. So make sure you
Actually,
check
I sold out of my first book.
Did you? Is it finally gone? Okay.
Yep, it's gone. So the first book, you'll no longer see it on my website. If you got somebody told me the other day that they was looking on Amazon and they found one of my books. The first book for sale for $96.
What?
So,
I'm selling mine if I can get $96 out of it.
Well, I should have said I was sold out about a year ago and then start selling them for $96. I took a lot less than that. But
well, the joke's always been at trade shows when people ask you to sign them, and they're worth less after you sign them. So
that's what I tell everybody.
Yeah. So, all right, well, if you've got something on order and haven't gotten it, you should have it fairly soon. So you got some questions for us tonight, Don?
I do. The first one comes from Dylan Smith from Storm Lake, Iowa. Dylan says, I've been listening to the two of you talk about the benefits of supplemental feeding for the deer herd. I live in northwest Iowa and heavy row crop production. Can I do damage to the herd by only feeding corn from January to green up? Would earlage, silage, or dried distiller's grain be a better alternative? Thank you for the podcast. I think there's a misconception, Dylan, in regards to corn. Now, if you just go out and put an animal on corn that's never had any corn in its diet, they can eat too much and founder.
You're saying if it was like in the mountains of West Virginia where there's not a cornfield for 100 miles, that would be a situation like you're talking about.
Yeah, and you just start dumping out corn and the deer showed up and started gorging on it, they would founder. It can happen to any ruminant, really. But in northwest Iowa, where there's a lot of corn grown in the fields, feeding corn is not going to hurt those deer at all. In regards to some of these other feed products that you mentioned, earlage, which I'm not sure what that is, silage, or dried distiller's grain, which is an ethanol byproduct, I'm not sure how well deer would eat those.
Yeah, I know I had the bright idea one year of trying to grind corn, eared corn, in the grinder that we use for cattle, and trying to feed it, and you had actually talked me out of it because of how finicky they are. That I'm not sure if you said you had tried it with your captive deer or you heard somebody, but I can't remember. But I ended up not trying it because getting that palatability down where they wouldn't eat it.
Yeah, I always had better luck with the captive deer. They did not like a finely ground feed, a textured feed, which is basically a whole grain mix. They would consume that a whole lot better. So that's what I tried to stick with.
And it's a balance. Talk, if you don't care, talk a little bit about feeding shell corn versus rolled corn versus cracked corn. And the reason I laid those three out there is the consistency of the feed is quite a bit different. But I've always heard about, feeding a whole kernel of corn. By the time that deer passes it, a lot of it hasn't broken down yet. But rolled corn is a little bit coarser of a texture, and then you get all the way down into full cracked or even like chicken feed, scratch feed. Talk a little bit about the palatability benefit versus the deer wanting to intake it as much.
Well, and a lot of it comes down to the quality that you can maintain with the feed. I mean, if that corn's still in a whole kernel, you'll maintain the nutrient value in that corn a whole lot better than if it's cracked or ground. The one thing, when I was feeding the captive deer, I really liked rolled corn, where it was still in a whole kernel, but that kernel had kind of been crushed.
Right.
And it really wasn't falling apart, but it was cracked, and
wasn't the powder. It wasn't the powder like a true cracked corn would be.
Right. Yeah. It was still in the grain, but that grain had been cracked, and I like to do that. And then there's an ingredient that we put in our Maximizer Complete feed, that a liquid product that cracked corn kernel will absorb it and make it a whole lot more palatable. So that's one reason I like that rolled or cracked. It's not really cracked. I guess you would call it rolled corn.
Yeah, rolled corn. Mm-hmm. So hope that helps. I can tell you, I haven't. I think Don and maybe my buddy Patrick Simpson are the only ones that I've really talked about this on, but I'm actually doing a test right now with whole peanuts, and especially in this late season, they are loving them. So I ran out of, if everybody, the listeners know, I've run out of beans because the neighbor's cows got out and destroyed the food plot, so I've been cranking up the supplemental feeding quite a bit on my farm since there's no food. But the peanuts are going over very well. So we put some more of those out today. They're just hard to get your hands on at a very, very economical price. So need any of my listeners that are down in the Carolinas that's got a bead on how I can buy bulk containers of peanuts, shoot me a message. I'd be interested in talking with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Peanuts they're high in protein, they're high in oil, and they're high in fiber. That shell, the deer will eat the shell and all. Yep. And a lot of fiber in that shell. So peanuts in the shell are a very good deer feed.
So yeah,
a lot of captive deer breeders feed that.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, any of our listeners down there, I'd like to do some more testing on that. So if you want to give me a message on social media, I'd love to talk to you. So Dylan, thank you for your question. Hope that helps, and hope Northeast Iowa is staying warm. I think it's bitter cold there right now.
Yeah, I know it is.
Or Northwest Illinois. I think he said Northwest Iowa, didn't you?
He did.
Northwest Iowa, yeah. All right, what's our next question?
Our next one is from Greg Neese from Walton, Kentucky.
Hey, that's next door to me.
Well, you want to answer this one?
I don't know what the question is yet, but...
Okay. Hello, Don and Terry. My name is Greg Neese, and I live in Walton, Kentucky. Sorry I'm not on social media, but I'm a big fan of yourself and Terry and an avid listener to the Chasing Giants podcast. I have a question that has bugged me for quite some time on doe management. I have several buddies that do their doe management in the late season. I, on the contrary, have always liked to do it in the early season. My reasoning for this is I've always been afraid of shooting a doe that may possibly be carrying one of my mature buck fawns after peak breeding. I've never really heard much about this topic. I'm wondering if I'm just overanalyzing it or if there's any validity to my thoughts on this topic. On a side note, is there any particular age class of does that are better to harvest to help the overall buck herd each year? That being mature does versus middle class versus yearlings. Thank you guys for all you do and keep up the great work. God bless.
Yeah, that's
you want to take it? You want me to run with it?
That's your question, not mine.
Well, as far as when you harvest your does, I've heard many people say that they don't want to shoot them in the late season because that doe is bred and she's probably carrying twins. They're really killing 3 deer, but that reasoning don't really hold. It isn't really valid as far as I'm concerned, because you're killing that doe whether you kill her early or you're killing her late. You're taking 3 deer out of the herd for next year, so that really is not a valid reason for when you shoot them. Shooting does early in the season, when you do it that way, you're shooting the resident does, or those does that live on that property year round. When you get into the late season, the deer herd is going to be concentrated around the better food sources.
Right.
So the does you shoot at that time, it's hard telling where they came from. They may be local does that were resident on your property, or they may have come from the neighbors, a mile, 2, 3 miles away. That's the challenge late. Personally, I like to shoot them late just because I don't want to put pressure on my farm early. By shooting does, having to track them, maybe into the sanctuary or whatever. I just like to put as little pressure on my farm as possible early, and then shoot them, after I've shot my bucks or after the rut's over.
Since you're in Kentucky, you're in the same boat that I am. I try to always, I go after my buck in September in Kentucky. It didn't happen this year due to operator and mechanical error on a piece of archery equipment, but regardless, by being in Kentucky, I think you have 2 great benefits to your doe management. Number 1 is our season opens in September. Number 2 is that you can feed, so you can hunt over bait. And if you're okay with this, Ohio would be in the same boat. I think Kansas is in the same boat. Some of the southern states are. And the reason I say that is you can draw those does up to certain areas of your property, next to a barn, behind the house, away from your core area that you're going to hunt for your bucks, and get those does away from that area so you can take them out if you're going to do it in early season. So I know that hunting over bait is kind of a choice that you have to make, whether you're okay with it or not. But I do think for the guys that want to take does out, if you're able to do that, you can pull those does to different areas of your farm and not add any intrusion to your best spots that you don't want to booger up for your buck hunting.
That's a good point. And as far as which does to shoot, mature does, middle class, or yearlings, as Greg puts it, personally, I'm looking for the doe that's got the twin buck fawns with her. And we've talked about this multiple times, but that's going to be the older mature doe most of the time. But if a doe comes by me and she's got twin buck fawns, that's a doe that's in trouble.
Yep, so. I agree. And I don't see the difference between shooting a pregnant doe late season or a doe that hasn't been bred yet. You're still having the same end result for the next season. It's just whether that doe's been bred yet or not. So, But hope to see you at the Kroger in Walton sometime, Greg. If you see me out, stop me.
All righty. Next question. Joel Mauris, and I think Joel has submitted questions before we've used, so he must come up with some good ones. He's from Meadville, Pennsylvania. Joel says, "Hello, Don and Terry. Thank you for all your information and the time you take out of your day to produce these podcasts. I am 25 years old and live in Northwest Pennsylvania. I recently bought an old 125-acre cattle farm. I've hunted this farm since I've been the legal age to hunt. As I plan to live at this location for a long time, I want to create the best whitetail habitat that I can. Of course, my whitetail plans don't match with my neighbors, as they shoot anything that comes by and drive off every woods around me. My property is diverse from ag fields, old pastures, oak ridge, to even lowland swamp. When it comes to holding mature whitetails on your land, have you noticed one type of bedding that is king above all else? Or since every deer is different and have their own personality, it changes? I could hinge cut and create thicker bedding, let the old pasture grow up in natural cover, or plant switchgrass. Sorry for this lengthy question, just trying to paint a better picture of my property. Thanks again for your time and knowledge. God bless. Well, Joel, as far as the preferred type of cover that a mature buck would prefer, it varies from individual buck to individual buck from what I've noticed on my farm. The number one key is freedom of human intrusion. And if you listen to this podcast very long, you're going to hear me mention freedom of human intrusion more times than you'll be able to count. That's how important it is. More properties are ruined by human intrusion than anything else. With that said, areas of thick cover without human intrusion is ideal. Old pastures, as far as I'm concerned, old cattle pastures that haven't had cattle on them for about 10 years or so, and the grass is giving way to briars and saplings and weeds, that's as good as it gets. Basically, all you got to do is stay out of it. A lot of those old pastures will have, scattered giant oak trees or such for shade for the cattle, and those trees produce seed, which results in a lot of saplings growing up. And then without cattle in there grazing, you get the briars coming on. The grasses are slowly taken over by weeds and other woody browse. An old growed up cattle pasture is absolutely as good as it gets.
Yep.
But that freedom of human intrusion is more important than the kind of cover.
The one thing that I've learned hanging around with you as much as I have the last few years is a white-tailed deer is probably one of the most adaptable creatures that God's ever created, and they can bed wherever and live wherever they need to. We see them in neighborhoods. We see them in a fence row out in the middle of huge ag country. They'll adapt, but they're going to be where you're not.
Exactly.
So, but I do like growing up cattle pastures. That's what most of my farm is. If Joel, the farm that I have is an old dairy farm that the old pasture that they used to go out in is grown up along the woods, and I have food plots down the center of it. So as far as not having neighbors on the right side, I would try to make your sanctuary and core as close to the center as you can, and then if you're going to go in, go around the perimeter where those neighbors are and hunt it from the outside in.
That's great advice. We appreciate your question, Joel, and Greg as well. And Dylan, you guys will all be getting Chasing Giants t-shirts. So, like we said, next week we're going to focus on the trees. If you got tree questions, cross-seeding questions, whatever, that's that time of year, so get those in. And maybe next week we'll select your question.
All right, so snow's coming into Illinois and Kentucky. Snowmageddon, as they're calling it here in Kentucky. We're getting somewhere between 13, 16 inches this week, and we're not used to that, so I'm sure that everybody will be in mad panic mode trying to buy toilet paper for non-COVID reasons this time. But I know you said Illinois is bitter cold and supposed to get about a foot of snow up there.
Yeah, I talked to my wife this morning, and it was below zero with a wind chill, 20-some below. And I think I picked a great week or time period. I'm going to be gone for about 2 weeks, actually. I don't think I could have timed it any better.
So would she make you walk the dogs when it gets that cold outside?
She might. I don't know. I'm not coming home till it warms up.
Well, I don't know if Robin listens to the podcast. I know my wife doesn't. So, Robin, there's your hint that he's open to it when it gets real cold and he's home. If you need him to walk the dogs, he's willing.
Well, I don't think she listens to the podcast, so
you're safe.
I'm safe. I'm staying out east until spring.
So you're in Pennsylvania, Ohio tomorrow, then move on to Pennsylvania, and then you're going up the East Coast, right?
I'm going to New Jersey after that, and then I'm going to work my way back home. So I'm going to be gone another week, so I may be in a motel room next week still. Whenever we record next week's podcast, but who knows? The weather's going to dictate where I go as much as anything. Because if it's too bad, I may just head for home.
Right.
But I don't see it any better at home, so I might as well stay out here and get all my consulting done and get this part of the country taken care of anyway.
Well, I saw today that I think he was 12 years old, looked like he put you through the ringer in the hills of eastern Ohio today.
Yeah, shout out to my buddy Elijah Cook from West Virginia. I followed him around the mountains of southeastern Ohio today, and when I say follow, I do mean follow, because he left me in the dust. And I was huffing and puffing. I felt like I climbed Mount Everest today. But Elijah's killed some really good bucks, and he's supposed to be sending me some pictures of them. I did see a couple pictures on his dad's phone, but he's supposed to be sending me some more of those pictures.
Good deal. All right, so we'll keep you in our prayers as you're doing this long travel stint up the East Coast. I will give everybody a quick update. I did have an MRI on my back on Friday. I get the results of that tomorrow, so keep that in your prayers. I need to get recovered on this before softball season. I got a bunch of kids depending on me here in about another 3 weeks, and I got to get over this this back thing really, really fast. It's pretty debilitating at the moment, so I appreciate your prayers on that. And also your support of this new venture that we're going to be doing to support the Ward family. Tenley and Adley, we're praying for you all, even though we hope your dad's listening to the podcast tonight. And both Don and I will be sharing their Facebook page so you guys can go learn more about their story. Real quick, Don, before we sign off and you close us out, I would like to read one thing real quick. It's a passage from Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 through 4. It says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking for your own interest, but each of you the interest of others." So whether you're supporting the Ward family or someone else in your community, this week, I just challenge you, go find something that will help you make a difference in somebody else's life. And blessings to everybody. Thanks for the support. We really appreciate it.
Amen. So we want to thank our sponsors, BuyAFarm.com, 360 Home Line, Quiet Cat, Real World Wildlife Products, Vortex, Lone Wolf, and Maps. Stay inside and stay warm, everybody. We'll see you next week.